Hey there, folks. Eric William here with Indie Films Backstage, and we are at the Indie Gathering, the 25th anniversary of the Indie Gathering, actually. And this year we are virtual. So what we've done here this year is we've created some meetings and some interviews, and I've got a writer, director, producer of Love Happens with me. Liza, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, it's great to be here.
I tell you what, for the folks out there that might be tuning in or looking at this, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your movie tonight.
Okay, great. So my name's Liza Rafael. I'm writer, director, producer, and editor, like Eric said, of Love Happens. This is my first fiction feature. It's my second feature. My first film was a documentary. This is a rom-com thriller hybrid film, sort of taking the stereotypical tropes of a romantic comedy and putting them on their head and seeing what would happen if somebody actually experienced those things in real life. And yeah, and really excited to be playing at the Indie Gathering.
So I tell you what, it's what's kind of nice about being at this virtual setting is very, very rarely in the past have I ever got to actually sit down and watch the movies and then actually had the time because they're always on such a time crunch. So I was able to come in a little bit late, but start it from the beginning. So I actually got to watch this. So I was really excited. And I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, it's very often that a movie can't, I can't tell where a movie's going to go. And that's not the good writing, bad writing. It's just sometimes people fall in, just like you said, those tropes, they fall into categories, there's formulas. And that's what I liked about this. It took everything and just turned it on its head. It was a hybrid that was, it deconstructed that rom-com and threw in all these elements, and it was just very, very, very well written. If you could tell us a little bit about maybe where your inspirations came from in creating such a script.
Sure. So I started working on the script for this in 2013, so a while ago, but the idea hit me even earlier than that when I was noticing a lot of my friends and like other people around me who were kind of obsessed at a very young age with romantic comedies and sort of getting pulled into, well, this is what you have to do by this point in time in your life, otherwise you're not following the rules, you're not on track. So I'm not really a person to follow any sort of conventions in the first place, but I was very frustrated with this because it's not like they were zombies. These were like very intelligent women who were like following into this. So I was it was really important to me to figure out like why. And so in exploring that idea, sort of came up with, there's this other force, there's this other thing that is pushing these women, and in particular the main character Jessica, to behave in a certain way, and she is rightly confused by it. She doesn't understand what's going on. None of these people were behaving this way before the inciting incident. So this character is closer to my age now, but when I started writing, I was thinking of a much younger person, i.e. myself, straight out of college, being like, why is this so important? Like, we need to like learn how to be adults first, right? So that's where the genesis of the idea came. And when I finally started writing in 2013, it was because I figured out that I wanted to make this a genre hybrid, that I knew that it needed to be more than a romantic comedy, because if it was just a romantic comedy, it would not be like pushing the boundaries of expectations. And so I decided it needed to be like a thriller, sci-fi, horror hybrid in some way. And for a lot of women, being trapped inside a romantic comedy would be a horror film. So that's where that came from.
Well, I tell you what, it has all of those elements. And I think the biggest key is your lead actress. She sends this, I mean, really takes it to that next level. It delivers the lines. She's got those key moments. She's trying to figure all this out. Things are, but wow, what a performance. Can you tell us a little bit about her? And I know she's actually up for best lead actress in a feature, I believe, at the Indie Gathering.
Yes, so that's Caitlin Burt who plays Jessica, and she is my Jessica. And she, as I saw her reading the lines for the first time, I just, I knew that she was going to be able to take this role, and she made it her own. It's really, it's her interpretation of what I had on the page, and I think that it added this extra level. She comes from she has a lot of YouTube videos. She does a lot of sketches. She has like this comedy and also sci-fi background, and bringing that to a romantic lead, I think is really interesting and not what you're going to expect. She had the right level of skepticism for walking through this story, and that was really important. I'm very excited that she's being recognized and nominated for this award. I really am. I'm proud of her. She's also an associate producer on the film. She helped make a lot of things happen. She was a connective tissue in some of our crew, finding our crew members, finding some of our cast when we had some last minute people back out. She was able to, with her connections, find some of the key roles that we needed to fill. And she's just a force, and I'm really excited for her in this, and also like what she's doing next. And I to see where that's going. And she's great.
So yeah, fantastic job. And again, touching a little bit on the cast. What I liked also was that the friendships, the relationships all around really came across the screen. And a lot of that's the writing, a lot of that's the casting. Can you tell us a little bit about the casting? You said you had some issues at last minute where you had to fill in some holes. Take us behind that.
Yeah, so we started casting pretty early, about 6 months before we started shooting. And because we were doing things long distance, the movie was filmed in northern Michigan. That's where you get the like great scenery on the lake and all of that. But I myself am based in New York City, and we had people based all over the country. So a lot of things were happening virtually. And I did fly in for a in-person callbacks for casting, just to, be there. There were other things that I was flying in for as well, with pre-production. But that was when I first met a lot of the people that we cast in person. And it was really great. There were people that walked in and I knew that they knew what they were doing and had it down. I have to say, like, for any actors who are watching this, walking in and having it memorized, and like not even having the script out, and having the sides done, and like fully embodying the role is a big plus. That yeah. But there are situations that you can't account for. So the last minute casting issues, like, there were some people who had like a death in the family, other things like, contracts and stuff like that. So you've got like you always have to have that space in your head when you're making a movie. Is like you can be as prepared as possible. You can have like everything ready to go, and as long as there's 24 hours in between you starting production, there's something that can happen, and you have to be ready for it. And I think that the skill set that, you can talk about like, going to film school and like, what are all the things you can learn? It's like, no, be good at problem solving. Just be able to handle any situation without panicking. And I think it's also about like who you do have around you. Like I said, so Caitlin was able to give me a phone number for the casting agency that she works with, and within, I want to say, like a very short amount of time, people had posted their video submissions for the roles that we were looking for, and within, you know, maybe 24 hours, I had the roles cast. So it's, you know, a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is luck, a lot of it is timing. And also the people that we found were the right people for the role. One of the guys who we found was Bobby Lannon, and he plays Dan. And he, we called him One Take Bobby, because he, the only thing he was doing when he was not in front of the camera was memorizing his lines, and it was phenomenal. And he was also great with some of the stunt work that we were doing. He actually has a stunt background. If you are following him on Instagram, you can see all of the films that he's doing stunt work on, spending a lot of time with Bruce Willis these days. So he's doing great. And we're very lucky to have found him. And in that sort of a way, you can't predict that. You can't plan for something like that.
And again, that's amazing. Now, again, leading into this, I kind of heard this during the Q&A. You only had what, 8-9 days to put this together.
Yeah. So yeah.
It takes you 6 years to come up with the concept. You've got this kid, now you've got 8 days. It's like, wow. So take us a little bit about this timeline. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. So we shot the film we filmed for 8 days over 9 days. So there was 1 day off in between, and that is not enough for most work schedules. So I know that it's pretty typical for an independent film, not for a feature though. And
for a feature, that blew me away. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I think that what it comes down to is time and money. And time had to do with how long we had the locations for. So we only had our wedding location for a day. And so we had to get all of that done in 1 day. We only had the bar for like a day and a half. So we had to do all of our bar scenes in that period of time. And some of the things were a little bit more flexible when we were like outside or in some of the other locations. But you also have to think about weather. And we had to do some rescheduling because there was supposed to be a storm and we were all concerned about being outside, and then it didn't really rain. And so we like moved it around for no reason. And but again, you just have to like go with it. And yeah, so we did what we could in that amount of time. And the final 2 days of shooting were not as long as the first set of days, but we also had limitations based on when certain places were open. The place that we filmed for the news station was actually a library. Oh, okay. Where we rented out 3 of their rooms. We rented out two conference rooms and their computer lab. And we set up shop there, we moved everything around, and but we could only be in there while the library was open. So they weren't going to let us just like hang out there after hours. So we had limitations there. So it's sort of, you have to figure out how you can get it done in that amount of time. And I think this happens a lot with films where you spend your first day trying to get everything perfect. You have, 1,000 takes for every scene. You are setting up very extravagant shots. Our film opens with the tracking shot that I was like very, very much, no pun intended, married to. And I think that that took up like several hours worth of our time. And
I mean, that's
it's really nice. So
first thing I noticed is like, oh, that's so
yeah.
I'd have been into it too.
So I think that you spend all of this time and then you realize, oh, it's 8 p.m. and we have not finished like half of what we need to do. And you reassess and you have to go and look at your shot list for the next day and say like, okay, what are we scrapping? And that, I think it was really helpful for me to sit with my DP and say, okay, this is everything that I want. And him to go, well, we don't have time for this. And also to have like another point of view, to be creative about, okay, we could actually cover this in one shot if we did it like this. And instead of doing every single, single 2-shot, etc. So that was something that you learn in those kind of conditions. You figure that out.
And that brings us to something we had discussed in a panel earlier today. Trust in your team, especially in independent film. And when you're the writer, director, you're producing it, you're eventually going to edit it. You have to do these roles, but there's also a time where you have to have somebody step in and you have to have that trust, like you just said, with your DP to come in and work together. Tell us about the relationships, as far as the behind the scenes with your DP and your producers, on how that trust is, important to rely on each other.
Yeah. So Wade Lux, who is my DP, he was the DP on my first film, my documentary. And that was really that process. So that documentary was over the course of a year that we spent filming. And so Wade and I knew each other very well by the end of that. And even after that was about 10 years ago. And so even after all of that time coming back and working together, we had the second hand that made it easier to communicate on set and to not have to have like really long conversations in the middle of things, and to be able to say like to Wade's like, I need to have this covered. I want to make sure we get this and this. All right, go. I need to talk to my actors now. So that's that was really important. And the other crew members were not from my first film, but they were all really great. And some of them, this was, one of their first productions that they were working on, and were super eager to learn. And I found that is really important on a scrappy set like ours was, is to say like, okay, you are also interested in makeup and all of these other things, right. Like, and you want to like help with set deck. Okay, that's great. I will give you a reference. But to be able to have individuals who have initiative, and then for me, it's kind of a situation where having them come to me and say like, I'm excited and interested about the script. This is what I think about this. And there were things that my production designer, she was one of her first films. And the first thing that she dressed was the wedding scene, where it's got to look like the end of a wedding reception. And I was in another room because we were setting up something else. And I walked out and I was like, this looks like a wedding reception just finished. Like there was nothing about it that looked suspicious, like a film set. Like it was there. It's like, I can give her direction and walk away. Like that to me is really important, to be able to have that kind of trust. And I also want to call out my sound team. there Fred and Janae Evans, and there were some other Angela also helped with sound one day, and Catherine, and they were so important. I think that this is not something that as a viewer you think about a lot, but sound is so important to the quality of the film. And it's almost impossible to watch a movie if there's bad sound.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how, if it's like shot on an Alexa, like it doesn't matter how pretty it looks.
If it's got bad sound, it is just hard.
Yes.
Have some of the best acting going on, but if there's you can't hear them, I mean, it's so that's in fact that's what I was going to take to next, was the sound quality. And it was just impeccable. It was what you want to look for, especially when you're dealing with bar scenes and outdoor scenes and wedding receptions. There's so many areas where sound can just go horribly wrong, especially and it was
definitely.
So it was kudos to your sound team. That was amazing.
Yes, and Fred also did the post sound as well, and that was a really important part of the process, because we did post in 2019. So before everybody was virtual, I was actually doing that virtual because Fred is located in Michigan. And so he would send me some like cuts, and I would then get on the phone with him and we would talk it out. And that was when we started doing that, that was the first time I was actually physically collaborating with someone in the post process, because everything else up until that point I was just like sitting editing by myself. And so that was really important to like get this extra feedback of like, this is what he thinks this scene should be. Right. And then I would come back and say like, this is great, but can we do this with it? Can we do like a little bit different? Not a lot. He thinks it was a lot. I found out after the fact. He's like, he gave me a lot of notes. I was like, oh, I didn't think it was a lot. But that's part of it, is that, you like, he's also getting another set of feedback too, because he's working by himself. So that was really a great part of the collaboration. And if anybody is doing anything and needs a sound person in Michigan, I highly recommend Fred and his team.
There you go.
He's great.
Big shout out. Because that's not too far from us. We're in Cleveland, so it's
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
just our neighbors to the north there. I tell you what, as far as everything goes, we've talked a little bit about your crew and the casting, the productions. It took you a while to get to this to your second feature. So what's next for you? What do we got on the horizon for you? Are you working on other projects? Because I don't want to give away any spoilers to this, but I want to kind of know if there's going to be more to this one or what's going to happen next. I mean, tell us a little bit about what you got cooking.
So I am in the middle of writing a couple of different scripts. They're all very different. They're all they're different from each other. They're different from Love Happens. They're different from my first film. They're not documentaries. And I think that's what's exciting for me, is that they're all like exploring different worlds. And I do think that the story of Love Happens is complete with this film. I know that like that there it could be, but I don't see this existing in any other form. Like there are no spin-offs, like I know. Or anything like that.
It's in its own perfect world, but that's as a I actually got to lose myself as a viewer, and I loved it. So I wanted to see more. So that's just me being.
That's great to hear, and I think that's you don't want anyone to be sick of it.
But in the same vein, I understand completely. It's you want to go into and I like the idea of how you said new world. So like what kind of things are you thinking?
Well, so I do I've figured out in this next round of writing process that I enjoy the comedy writing aspect of it. And it's not so much like a specific genre of the romantic comedy or anything like that. I think it is, I like to tell a story with some levity to it. I like to be able to write jokes. And I say this as like not a comedian myself, but I like to write jokes that other people say. Right. So I think that that's something that's going to be consistent throughout everything that I do, but I do like the idea of creating more hybrid genres and having an extra layer to it, because there's so much content, especially right now, it feels like, that is very serious. And there are certain things that are serious and should be taken seriously. It should be done in a certain way. I don't think that that's necessarily my way of doing things. And I find that like, if you can put a punchline at the end of it, people are more likely to listen to what you're saying. So there can be a message in, or you can talk about serious topics within a comedy without having to have sort of a grim undertone to it. And that's something that I've found over the past couple of years since finishing up Love Happens. And I'm excited about what's next when that's right, because one of the things that I've figured out is that so Love Happens was a crowdfunded project, and while I am immensely appreciative of everyone who supported that project, I don't plan to do another crowdfunding project because it is very hard to ask your friends and family for money. And that's essentially what it is. So if anybody's looking into crowdfunding, be prepared for really awkward conversations. And and I think that it's, one time is fair. Yeah. Going back to the well
again.
Over and over again is not fair. So I do want to be able to make the next film with, whether it's investors or another production company, and also not be in a situation where I feel like I wish that I could pay my cast and crew more, but I just can't, because I that's my biggest thing, is making sure that the work that's being done is being appreciated. I have worked on films where I was not paid, and that is very strange to like dedicate so much of your time to something.
Right.
And experience is important, but I don't think that we live in a world where you can just work for free. Like, that's not something that's not realistic, and that shouldn't be the expectations. And everyone on my set was paid, but I wish I could have paid them more.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. It's like you said, that's kind of the bane of the independent film. It's, you always want to, show the appreciation. So we do it in the ways that we can, and some people will volunteer their time, and that's fantastic. But like you said, how many times can you keep asking for the volunteers when you're making this project? It's
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, all of the people that worked on the set, I wouldn't be able to afford them right now. Like, and that's sort of what you want. You want them to learn something and to grow and to be out of your reach.
Yes.
After the end.
Yeah. You've let them out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, so, exactly.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I tell you what, I don't want to keep you forever. I could probably just keep talking and talking. That's part of what I do. But for the folks that might be watching this that weren't lucky enough to attend the virtual 25th anniversary here of the Indie Gathering, where can they find out more about you, more about Love Happens? Are you more on the festivals before it gets released, or do you have any distribution plans?
So we don't have distribution plans yet. We're still doing the festival circuit this year. We are the website is lovehappensfilm.com, and on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, we are at Love Happens Film. And that's where any updates about new festivals and other plans for screenings will be. So if you can follow us on any of those platforms, or you can subscribe directly on the website. And you can follow me on Twitter if you want to, but I don't know that you'll learn a lot. That's at Liza J. Rafael. And that's, it's mostly me retweeting what I'm doing about the movie. So
that sometimes is enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the fact that somebody can find you and hey, retweet what you can. So
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate everything. Like I said, very, very great movie, folks. If you can get a chance, check out Love Happens. It's definitely worth a watch. And like I said, it's very, very rare that I can actually lose myself as a viewer, because I'm always, as a filmmaker myself, I'm always kind of deconstructing movies, and and I can appreciate some of the film qualities, but then I got into the movie, and by the end I'm like very, very well done. I was very, very pleased. So thank you so much for joining us, and I tell you what, I can't wait to see more from you. So I look forward to it.
Thanks so much.
We'll get you back to the festival. And then folks, thanks so much for joining us right here on Indie Films Backstage, taking you backstage behind today's best independent films. We'll see you next time.